Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they don't understand how power actually works. They walk into hierarchies believing effort will protect them, honesty will be rewarded, and brilliance will be noticed, only to discover too late that visibility is often punished before it is praised. In this series, we examine power the way Machiavelli would if he were alive today, stripped of comfort, stripped of moral fantasy, and grounded in the systems that govern modern life. If you want to understand the rules that decide who rises, who is tolerated, and who is quietly removed, you're in the right place. Subscribe now, not for motivation, but for awareness, because power doesn't announce itself before it acts. Power doesn't hate incompetence, it hates competition, and nothing provokes retaliation faster than making the person above you feel small. Law 1, never outshine the master, is not about shrinking yourself or abandoning excellence, but about understanding how hierarchies actually punish visible superiority. In modern terms, it means this: when someone controls your access to opportunity, resources, or advancement, never make them feel replaceable before you are protected. Machiavelli would see this as fundamental because in The Prince, survival always comes before expression, and authority always protects itself long before it rewards talent. Machiavelli understood that rulers are not undone by enemies alone, but by wounded pride, and that truth has only become more relevant with time. If he lived today, he would immediately recognize that modern systems still revolve around gatekeepers who distribute rewards based not on merit, but on loyalty, emotional comfort, and perceived control. To outshine your master is to trigger their deepest insecurity, and insecure people with power do not argue, they remove. They don't confront openly, they delay, block, isolate, and quietly erase. Modern power structures are engineered to look rational while functioning emotionally. Job descriptions promise meritocracy, schools promise fairness, and businesses promise innovation, yet behind all of it sits human psychology. Machiavelli would argue that the greatest mistake ambitious people make is assuming intelligence alone will protect them. Intelligence without political awareness is a liability, because it exposes the hierarchy's weaknesses without first securing immunity. In corporate life, this law operates silently but relentlessly. Promotions rarely go to the most capable person, they go to the person who makes the boss feel competent, respected, and necessary. If you solve problems too visibly, speak too confidently, or attract admiration that eclipses your manager, you don't look impressive, you look dangerous. Machiavelli would advise competence wrapped in humility, results delivered quietly, and brilliance strategically attributed upward. He would also point out that visibility must be earned, not seized. Those who announce their value before the system is ready to protect them are often labeled difficult, arrogant, or not a culture fit. These labels are not judgments of performance, but defensive mechanisms used by authority to neutralize perceived threats without admitting fear. In academic environments, this law is just as unforgiving. Students who openly challenge teachers, outperform them intellectually, or expose their mistakes often find themselves graded more harshly or excluded from opportunities. The system claims to reward curiosity and excellence, but it punishes public embarrassment of authority. Machiavelli would treat grades not as measures of intelligence, but as political outcomes shaped by perception and compliance. He would advise students to master the performance of respect before revealing intellectual dominance. To understand what a teacher wants to hear is often more valuable than knowing what is objectively correct. The smartest student in the room is not the one who wins debates, but the one who graduates with options intact. In business, especially startups and partnerships, outshining the master often looks like moving faster than the founder, becoming the obvious strategist, or attracting more attention than the leader. That visibility invites control, marginalization, or removal. Machiavelli would counsel strategic invisibility early on, allowing others to claim credit while you quietly accumulate leverage. Alliances, an indispensable skill. Financial systems obey this law as well. Employees who make their bosses feel financially dependent or strategically inferior are rarely rewarded for it. Investors prefer founders who appear confident but controllable, visionary but not rebellious. Machiavelli would tell you that money flows toward those who reassure power, not those who intimidate it, no matter how talented they are. The unspoken rule across all institutions is simple and brutal: never embarrass the person who can stop you. Deliver value in a way that flatters authority rather than competes with it. Let your superiority be felt in outcomes, not displayed through ego or correction. Machiavelli would treat restraint not as weakness, but as delayed domination. In social media spaces, this law plays out through algorithms and alliances. Outshining influential figures too early often results in shadow bans, exclusion, or quiet sabotage masked as policy enforcement. Platforms reward those who collaborate upward, not those who challenge the hierarchy too loudly. Machiavelli would see influence as a ladder climbed through alignment, not confrontation. Office politics expose this law daily. Employees who steal credit, speak over superiors, or correct them publicly earn resentment disguised as professionalism. Machiavelli would advise correcting privately, praising publicly, and allowing your superior to feel like the source of success. The goal is not truth, but survival and advancement within the system as it exists. Family dynamics reveal this law with uncomfortable clarity. Children who intellectually dominate their parents or openly undermine their authority often face emotional punishment rather than encouragement. Machiavelli would note that authority in families, like states, is sustained through perceived control, not fairness or logic. In parenting, outshining the authority figure without emotional intelligence creates rebellion instead of respect. Children who humiliate authority figures learn that dominance breeds instability, not trust. Machiavelli would argue that growth must be guided in a way that preserves the dignity of authority until independence is secured. Romantic relationships are no exception. When one partner constantly proves superiority, whether intellectual, financial, or social, resentment quietly replaces attraction. Machiavelli would see desire as rooted in balance, where dominance is subtle, negotiated, and never overtly threatening. Friendships collapse under this law when one person's success becomes a mirror of another's failure. Proximity amplifies comparison, and comparison breeds hostility when pride is involved. Machiavelli would warn that shared history does not protect against wounded ego. The dark truth is that misunderstanding this law leads to two extremes: reckless brilliance or total self-erasure. Those who suppress themselves entirely out of fear become invisible and disposable. Machiavelli would warn that shrinking is not strategy, it is slow extinction. Those who lack patience, emotional intelligence, or long-term vision often apply this law clumsily by pretending incompetence or withholding value altogether. This destroys credibility and invites disrespect. Machiavelli would argue that deception without direction is self-sabotage. People driven by ego, validation, or moral grandstanding should never attempt this law. They will inevitably reveal their superiority impulsively, seek recognition prematurely, and trigger retaliation they are not positioned to survive. Machiavelli would say power is not for the emotionally reactive. The most common failure comes from mistiming. Show too much brilliance before you have leverage and you are eliminated. Hide it too long and you are forgotten. Timing, not talent, determines survival inside hierarchies. The strategic reversal of this law is rare, but decisive. Once your position is untouchable, once authority depends on you rather than the other way around, overt brilliance becomes a signal of dominance rather than a threat. Machiavelli would break the law only when retaliation is impossible. In moments of crisis, visibly outshining others can create loyalty, trust, and legitimacy, but only when authority needs saving and alternatives are gone. Machiavelli would allow the mask to drop only when the audience has no choice but to accept his superiority. Power is not about proving you are the best. It is about ensuring that no one powerful feels threatened by your existence until it is too late for them to stop you. If this unsettled you, that's the point. Power is uncomfortable only to those who don't see it coming. The difference between being crushed by a system and mastering it is not talent, it's understanding. This series exists for people who would rather see the machinery than be fed comforting lies about fairness. If this perspective gave you clarity, share it with someone who is still playing by rules that no longer exist, and like the video so this conversation continues. Subscribe if you want to learn how Machiavelli's thinking applies to the world as it is now, not as we wish it were, because in every era, awareness is the only real advantage.